name is Logan, and I am a global HR business partner. I'm here today to help you create the best possible resume. I reviewed hundreds of resumes over time, and I'm here today to provide my favorite tips and suggestions as you create or update your resume. The flow of our session today will be as follows. First, I will start with the purpose of a resume, then move into some of the basics to get you started. We'll then review the details and the order of the information that you include on your resume. We'll discuss how to review and finalize your resume, and then I will address some common questions. You will then be ready for any job that comes your way. Let's get started. So what is a resume? A resume is a snapshot of your work history, which influences your qualifications for a particular position or type of employment. A resume highlights your work experience, your educational background, and any special skills. Typically, a resume is used as part of the job application process and is aimed to entice a potential employer to invite applicants to interview for an open position. Now, before we really dive in, and before you start listing all of your amazing skills and accomplishments, take some time to think about what you really want to jump off of the page and what you want to stand out to the person that is reading it. I personally like to go old school and grab a pen and paper, and I just jot down some thoughts that are in my head before I actually type them out. You can, of course, create a blank document on your computer and write down these thoughts and ideas before you get started. So you want your resume to be clear and concise. You should use a pre-existing template. There's no need to start from scratch. You can find these templates in a few places. The two I like best are either to utilize Google Docs. So if you have a Gmail account, there are recommended templates on the Docs section, which is in the upper right-hand corner of your Gmail account. Or I also like Microsoft Word. If you create a new Word document, it gives you the option for either a blank document or to search for an online template. If you type resume into the search bar, there's a number of options that will populate, and you can select whichever style you like best. Last, you can always do a general Google search for different resume templates. Now remember, you want your resume to be clear and concise. You should use black font, size 11 or 12. And with the font styles, there are so many options to choose from, but I would suggest sticking to either Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri. So now you've found the template that you love and you are ready to get started. You can dive in and create your masterpiece. So first things first, make sure your name and your contact information are clearly stated at the top of the page. So typically, contact information would be your email address and your phone number. You want employers to have the best information to be able to contact you the fastest way possible. A note on the email address. So if you still have an email address with a nickname, maybe from middle school or high school, you should definitely create a new email address that is more professional. So for example, common practice is using some form or combination of your name, whether that's a first name, middle name, last name, initials, that is completely up to you. A Gmail account is free, so if you are thinking about creating a new email account, Gmail is the way to go. It's also nice to have your emails and your documents all in the same place. So now remember, as you're creating your resume, have patience with yourself because it won't be and it shouldn't be perfect the first time. It is also normal and recommended to go back and continuously make adjustments or edits. So now if you notice, I said the page. This is because a resume should really not be longer than one page. In order to make everything fit on one page, you can always adjust the page margins in your document in order to maximize the space. So now, after your contact information is clearly stated at the top, your work experience should be listed in chronological order, starting with the current or most recent and working back in time. For each work experience that you list, you should have 4 items clearly stated. Those 4 items are your position title, your company name, the location of the job, and the time period that you were in the position. For the location, it does not need to be an exact address. You should only include the city and the state. For the time period, listing the month and year is recommended. So for example, if I started my job 2 years ago, I would list July 2018 to present. Once you have those 4 items listed, you then want to include a few bullet points to highlight your accomplishments and your skills utilized during that position. Remember, less is more. You want your bullet points to be factual and to the point. Keep in mind the person reading your resume. They are likely reviewing multiple applications, and they want to easily be able to identify what you did in your role and the accomplishments you made. I would recommend cross-referencing the job description you are applying for and leverage any keywords or criteria. If you're able to incorporate similar language into your experiences, the bullet points are a great place for this. So an example would be, if the job description for the position that you're interested in states that it requires handling heavy machinery or working in a fast-paced environment, and you have done these things in a prior work experience, be sure to include them on your resume. Also, you may have had more jobs that can actually fit on one page. This is okay, but you'll have to be selective and only list the ones that are most relevant to the position that you are applying for. So if you babysat and you are applying for a role that has nothing to do with children, you can exclude babysitting from your resume. Okay, so now once you have listed all of your relevant work experiences, this completes this section of your resume. The next section is education. So if you graduated from college, this is where you'd list the school you attended, and if you have a major or a minor or the degree that you graduated with. Also, if you have any specific certifications or took special courses, or if you know how to use a particular system that you think is important to include, you should list them here in the education section. So if you have enough space on the page, it's a nice personal touch to include interests or hobbies. By doing this, it includes a human touch and can be a positive point that sets you apart from other applicants. Some examples could be cooking, running, reading, bird watching, whatever it is that you would like to include that feels like a personal interest or hobby to you. Now, remember, technology is your friend. And before going any further, do a spell check. I have the bad habit of doing a spell check constantly as I'm going through my document, but you don't have to do it that way, and you can just wait until you get to the end and do a spell check. Also, reread your resume from top to bottom, from bottom to top. This helps to ensure that there aren't any mistakes. I also recommend to go back and remove any extra words that aren't beneficial to the points you are trying to make. So ask yourself, can you get the same point across if you condense your text and delete words that do not add value? For example, can you remove the word that or end and still have the same meaning of what you're trying to say? If the answer is yes, then delete those additional words. Remember, less is more. Also, if you have a trusted friend or family member, I would highly recommend that you ask them to review your resume and provide you with feedback. Now, don't get mad at any of the feedback that they provide you, but it's always helpful and important to have an objective point of view and a fresh set of eyes. So now, before we go our separate ways, I'd like to address a few common questions that I receive around resume writing. So the first question is, Should you have multiple versions of your resume? Yes, you can and you should end up having a few different versions. And this is because if you alter any specifications in your resume to match a specific job application, that will require a few different versions of your resume. Just make sure you save them so that you know which is which. Second, do you need a cover page? No, not unless the application says that it's required. A cover page is helpful if there is an obvious question that you think should be addressed. For example, if you're applying for a job in California, but your contact information and your prior work experience is in New Jersey or New York, a cover letter is helpful to explain this discrepancy and your intentions if you'd like to relocate or work remotely, whatever it may be. Okay, third question, do you need to include references? No, you don't need to include references, not unless the application says that it is required. So usually references are checked later in the application process. But a good option, or something that I do recommend, is at the bottom of your resume, you can just put a simple statement or sentence saying references available upon request. Okay, last, do you need to include an objective? So if you did go into Google Docs or Microsoft Word and saw some of the resume templates, some of them have a section to include a personal objective. This is completely up to you if you'd like to include this or not. So it is your personal preference. Now remember, Google is your friend and knows almost everything. So a quick Google search will likely help to answer any additional questions that you may have. So let's do a quick recap. You should brainstorm, before you start anything, brainstorm the points that you want to include on your resume. Then find a resume template that you love that will work for your resume creation. Then you will clearly state your name and contact information at the top of the page, followed by work experience, then your education, and then last will be any additional skills or interests. And of course, you do a final spell check and a final review. Now, after all of this work and editing and reviewing, you should now feel really great about your resume and it should be ready to submit for job applications. Best of luck to you in seeking out new job opportunities and the next step in your career.